We are back on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast and some more quarterback news, obviously continuing from the trends that we have seen just over the course of this offseason. We're going to talk about one of the quarterback battles, the one regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we now finally have a deadline, I guess you could say, on when Mike Tomlin and the Steelers will announce whether it's going to be Russell Wilson, whether it's going to be Justin Fields. A lot of people have diverse opinions on who the quarterback should be. I feel like a lot of people, I think over the last few days that I've seen, feel that it should be Justin Fields or that Justin Fields offers more. But I'm still nailed into the fact that I think Russell Wilson just gives you the best opportunity now for a few reasons, and I'm gonna get into those later on. But for right now, we're gonna talk about just their final preseason game and leading up to that, what Mike Tomlin said afterwards in regards to his decision. But the Steelers officially finished the preseason going 0-3 after losing to the Lions on Saturday. It was not the I don't want to say it wasn't the best showing, but in context, knowing that you lost the game, and while your starters weren't out there for that long, the Lions didn't play any of their starters. So the fact that you still lost, into the course of that game, doesn't paint the best picture for the Steelers, but I'm not really too bothered about that. The preseason is whatever. It's more so just to get guys ready, but a lot of people were watching how Russell Wilson not only responded to last week, just getting sacked every time he touched the ball, but also how the offensive line responded to that. Will this first team offense finally get anything cooking? And it started off pretty positively. They scored on that drive, the only drive that Russell Wilson got. He was out there starting the game, and he only played one drive, like I mentioned, but they did score that touchdown. Cordell Patterson ran it in, but throughout that drive, Russell Wilson finished his entire day being 2 for 2 for about 30-something yards. The highlight play for him was a nice sideline throw to the left sideline, if I remember correctly, for George Pickens, for a big gain. And then after that, it was more based on the run. They had that long run for Cordell Patterson. I think it was like 30-something yards. And that was pretty much it for Russell Wilson on the day, only playing one drive. And then Justin Fields comes in right after for the second drive of the game, and he pretty much finished his day 3 for 4 for 40 yards, also leading a touchdown drive, another rushing touchdown for the Steelers. And he did get more drives for the Steelers at the end of the day. Russ only had that one out there. He looked good, I guess, for Mike Tomlin, and he decided to sit him. Justin had a couple leading into halftime, or not even halftime, excuse me. I think he got pulled before that into the second quarter, and they didn't have too much to show, I guess, compared to the other two games that they played. Justin Fields also made a couple nice throws, a more relaxed game, it seemed, for him, showing off his legs a little bit more, some anticipated throws. He had a really nice one down the seam, down the middle of the field to one of their tight ends, which was a high-level throw, and for any Steelers fans, it seems like the middle of the field is off limits, it seems, the last few years for the limited amount of throws that have gone to that area. To see one there put in a good spot for the tight end to high point it a little bit was a good sight to see, but there was a bad play for Justin Fields, and in an exchange with Zach Frazier, there was a mistake with the timing of the snap. Frazier snapped it without, it seemed like Justin Fields knew that it was coming, so that was a bad play, and you pile that up with the mishandled snaps that he already had leading up into that game. I think it was their first preseason game against the Houston Texans. Not the best showing, but I think it doesn't negate the fact that Justin, I thought, did an all-right job, a decent job for coming in, playing with some of the backups a little bit. Then he gets pulled and into halftime, and the rest of the game, it was pretty much Kyle Allen and their fourth-string quarterback going out there. But now after the game, everyone's looking to Mike Tomlin, seeing if he'll give an answer, if he'll give any sort of hint as to who the quarterback will be. And I think he did give it, but in terms of what he actually said, this is the statement he made after the game. He said, we'll make a decision at the end of our work week this upcoming week. We have 3 days of Steelers versus Steelers work, and why not do it then? It kind of minimizes the Steelers versus Steelers work when we start making decisions prior to the completion of that. And back to what I mentioned at the start of this segment, any sort of hint, any sort of sign that kind of leads you to believe what Mike Tomlin is thinking, I think all you have to do is look at the fact that Russ only played one drive, and that should tell you your answer right away. You don't leave your starting quarterback out there for more than a drive or anything like that, 2 at most, if he is ultimately going to be your starter. The last week of preseason, hardly anybody played their starters, at least in comparison to the other weeks. So the fact that Russ went out there one drive, they scored, and that was pretty much it. And then Justin came in, not starting again, playing with the 2s and playing a few more drives. That to me just screams that Russ pretty much has won this job, if even it was a competition. I saw that being brought up on some shows just today on ESPN or whatever show I was watching. And, people just felt that this never really was a quarterback competition. And to anybody that felt, I guess, a little misled by Mike Tomlin's comments, I would just reference the fact that anytime they asked him about it, anytime that they asked if Justin did enough to exceed what Russell Wilson, played, or how Russell Wilson played, if there was any sort of shift in Mike Tomlin's thinking, I would just reference the fact that Mike Tomlin kept saying that no, Russell Wilson was still in pole position to be the starter. That's all he kept saying to any answer that, or to any question that he would be asked about who the starting quarterback will be. So if anybody today, tomorrow, or any time regarding this quarterback competition felt misled or felt tricked by Mike Tomlin, he never wavered from that stance. So to me, it always felt like it was going to be Russell Wilson. I felt that it should have been Russell Wilson for the fact that I mentioned it briefly last week, that right now it just feels like you have more to lose by starting Justin Fields than Russell Wilson at this point in time. And I don't mean that in any sort of negative way. I like what Justin Fields brings. I like that he's a running quarterback and that he's able to use his legs. I would love for eventually Justin Fields to be the quarterback going forward. But I just feel like right now, both of them starting on a new team and Russ having the pedigree, the resume, and everything like that, I think that suits this young, fairly inexperienced team with a very young offensive line to have an experienced guy back there that has been exposed to a lot of different situations, has seen almost all the coverages you could throw at him, at least for the start of the year, because, it goes back to those comments that Tom Brady made, that Bill Parcells made, that we addressed on the show as well. A lot of pressure gets put on these rookies to start right away, and I know Justin's not a rookie by any means, but the kind of support and preparation he got at Chicago, you can see that that was not what was needed, or what was needed for him to progress in the NFL. And now heading into a whole nother system, a whole new city, and almost essentially starting all over again, it just feels like Russ was better suited to start right now. Because if you did throw Justin Fields out there and he didn't perform as well, or he struggled right away, it would have been, you were almost killing 2 birds with one stone there. Because now, not only do you pull Justin Fields early, so you eliminate that option, but if you bring in Russ, he might be a little bit salty about the whole situation. And on top of that, if he doesn't play any better, then you have no options to go to. Then you can't go back to Justin really and throw him back out there, because you can't just keep switching between these 2 quarterbacks to see if hopefully one week one plays better than the other. That can't happen, not at this level at least in the NFL. So at least for the first couple weeks, you look at the schedule for the Steelers. They're at Atlanta for the first one. You have that Arthur Smith revenge game there. In a hostile environment like Atlanta with all the excitement, I would like to see the veteran presence there, if you will, for the Steelers. And then the second week, Russell Wilson was always going to play that game. It was too good not to. Against the Denver Broncos in Denver, like, come on, Russ was going to play that game, right? And then you have the home opener against the Los Angeles Chargers if the first 2 weeks go great, that one at home should be hopefully a little bit easier for a new look Chargers team. And then you have at Indianapolis, again, another road environment for what I would feel more comfortable with an experienced quarterback out there. And then you have another home game versus the Dallas Cowboys. Pretty tough start to the season, and I think throwing Russ out there with little, I wouldn't say little expectations, but not as much pressure on his shoulders, I believe, just because, again, of his legacy and his history as the starting quarterback. It seems like it would be your best bet for this team that needs to get off to a better start than they have the last few years, especially last year where they got smoked at home to the 49ers. So I would just feel more comfortable with Russ maneuvering those situations, those visiting environments, than I would with Justin Fields. And maybe if by like week 6, that's when I would start to entertain the possibility of Justin Fields coming in. Maybe if the game against the Colts or the Cowboys goes bad or the Chargers doesn't go as well, week 6 could be a time where you start to explore that opportunity of bringing back or bringing in Justin Fields to be that starter at the Las Vegas Raiders. No shade to the Raiders, they're not really considered a top team yet, so it would be an easier situation for them to come into if you're Justin Fields. So that's really where I'm at. Mike Tomlin says that he'll have an answer at the end of this week, but I'm pretty sure most of us know that it will be Russell Wilson. It'll be an absolute shell shock if it's not Russell Wilson and if it is Justin Fields. And I'll come on here and tell you guys how surprised I am, but it should be Russell Wilson from what everybody's saying and just from my general knowledge of the situation. So with that being said, we're going to put a pin on that and revise that when the announcement is officially made. But for right now, we're going to move on to the next break of our show and talk about some more quarterback talk. And Drake May and Jacoby Brissett, they played their final game of the preseason last night. Drake May impressed very much. He continued to impress, and there was an injury scare with Jacoby Brissett in the first drive that he had. He injured his shoulder. He didn't return, and what is his status and how could that affect the quarterback battle going forward? I'll address that in a few seconds. We'll be right back.